Most people spend 50% of their time thinking about stuff, yet we forget almost all of it. I want you to try and remember a moment where you sat down bored and thought of an amazing idea. Now this could be a storyline, this could be an invention, even a song. Basically anything you've thought of in your head when you were bored, that right there is something very powerful. But sadly, things like endless dopamine, stress, wasted time, etc. slowly destroy this ability. Okay, here's an example. Most people waste an average of 5 hours a day on their phones, and this single action has the greatest impact on not only imagination, but critical thinking skills in general. This matters because the more your brain is fed input, the less it can output things, which actually makes you lose a lot of creativity, discipline, etc. This has an even greater effect on intuition. If you've ever touched a hot stove, you'll know that your brain is capable of instantly processing a reaction to something. This is true because your brain is an efficiency machine. Every day your brain is constantly chunking patterns, associations, etc. This is why you can go through your average day and have a seemingly very smooth experience, because your brain already knows how to react to everything. And when you aren't doing something basic like walking, socializing, etc., oftentimes the skills you are good at also have a lot of patterns. For example, some musicians can make up songs as they play them. Some chefs can cook things without a recipe. But this is where things can go wrong if you let too much mindless entertainment waste your energy. If you're the kind of person to scroll through YouTube Shorts all day, your attention is so fragmented that your brain absolutely struggles to form memories. This is why you can scroll for hours and hours a day and only feels like 5 minutes, because it takes focus for your brain to form a memory. Now luckily this is actually pretty easy to solve. By the way, it doesn't require completely quitting something, it just requires replacing it with more productive tasks. For example, people who replace mindless entertainment often have way more motivation, discipline, focus, etc. And the key word is replace, because it is 10 times harder to quit something if your brain has nothing to spend that same energy doing. For example, if you replace the 2 hours of doom scrolling with learning a skill like communication, for example, you will not only make more money, but you will also expand the intuition your brain has, like the patterns your brain uses in your everyday life. And also during conversations, you'll have a way wider range of things to say, which in my opinion is a much better option than doom scrolling. It doesn't even have to be something that really gives you a return. It can be something intrinsically motivating. Like for example, maybe you can develop games, you can compose music, anything, like it's your pick. Now doing this stuff is pretty easy, but there's a good chance you might have a lot of setbacks, or even just want to level this up. And this is where we go deeper into how imagination actually works. Hyperphantasia. This shows up in about 4% of people, and it is the ability to imagine things with vivid detail. Most people lose a lot of ideas just from being unaware of this ability. For example, here's what it is. If you have hyperphantasia and you imagine a roller coaster, because you have hyperphantasia, it would feel so realistic that your brain might actually think it's happening in real life. So basically, hyperphantasia is just having an imagination that's as realistic as real life. Now, the reason I bring this up is because it technically is a skill. Like, you can train your imagination to be more realistic through practice. It's basically a muscle. Now, this is very fascinating since we all have this to a degree, but we almost never reach our full potential of it. For example, people who attempted to train this as a skill reported imagination so realistic that it started leaking into real life, which is scary, but also just shows what your brain can do. Now, this is a really cool ability to have since you can pretty much do anything with it. For example, if you have an even normal leveled imagination, there's probably been a few times in your life you thought of stories in your head, or entire worlds in your head. Like maybe you actually got a good idea from it and applied it to real life, or anything. Like you could do so much with your imagination if you train it. But it is important to know what to expect. The most common and obvious bad thing that could occur from it is intrusive thoughts. For example, if you train your imagination, you can have really bad intrusive thoughts. Now this does vary in intensity, and a lot of people don't have them, but yes, if you already get bad intrusive thoughts, I would recommend at least controlling them before training imagination. The thing is, your brain will adapt to having hyperphantasia, so if there's bad things that occur from it or you're not used to it, you will get used to it. And oftentimes the good things about this outweigh the bad by a lot. So far in this video, I've only gone to the surface level things, but when we have an untrained imagination, we lose way more than just creativity and discipline. Okay, I'll show you something. Have you ever noticed how the most genius people in history often have a very vivid imagination, even to the point they hallucinate things? This right here is actually where most of their ideas, inventions, music, etc. come from. And it makes perfect sense. If you only think logically, you will go from point A to point B. But if you use your imagination with logic, you can go almost anywhere. But most people think this doesn't apply to them, or they are unable to improve it, which is kind of sad because this mindset holds us back more than anything else. And what makes imagination specifically worth training is that it pretty much affects everything. Like you are upgrading the engine that your brain uses for the most important tasks. For example, if you like to compose music a lot but you don't have an imagination, you probably miss out on countless musical ideas every day. Or if you like to do math but you also don't use your imagination, you'll probably have way less creative ideas that you can test with your logic. Even for normal tasks, without an imagination, your brain will remember and predict things at a much slower rate. Anyways, the point is that this is something worth training. And before you guys get scared of all this stuff, it's actually not that hard to train, and it's oftentimes fun to do. But the real problem that can occur is becoming addicted to it. Like anything else, this can become an addiction if you do it wrong. This is known as maladaptive daydreaming. For example, a lot of people will report passively daydreaming about other lives or success stories, but never actually do work on their own lives. Some people imagine stories in their head for hours and hours a day, but never use them in real life. I won't go as far as to say it's as bad as doom scrolling, because at least you're generating stuff, but it is kind of wasteful when you can use your imagination for so much better things. So basically, the most important thing about imagination is to learn how to use it to support real life, not escape it. I will read every comment on this video, so if you have any stories on this, please let me know.